Okay, so here we are at the Barrels Pub once again for the Luton Deadpool podcast. Hello everybody, I'm Luton Deadpool. Today I have my special guest Claire Astbury, who is the Housing Strategy and Development Manager at Luton Borough Council. Is that correct?
That's pretty much, yeah.
Oh, I got it bang on. Oh my God, did you understand how many times I had to reread that sentence? So I kept muddling it up and I was like, no, you have to get it perfect. Oh, well done, Deadpool. All right, nice to meet you, Claire.
And you?
Well, I'll say nice to meet you. We've met plenty of times
We
before,
have,
haven't we?
yeah.
Yeah.
Out and about on the community events.
Yes, you're very active when it comes to Luton Town and any events and charity stuff that's generally on. And yeah, it's always great to see you. And I love the fact that you're very vocal with that on your social media as well. You always push positivity, and you're not one of these people that looks down on Luton, which most people unfortunately do. So yeah, it's really good to have someone like you, and I'm really grateful that you've decided to come on the podcast today. So thank you very much.
That's fine.
So would you tell me a little bit about yourself, like your background, who you are, where you come from? Were you born in Luton? You know, all that sort of stuff.
I was born in Bedford.
Okay.
I'm a Bedford girl. I've been around and about a number of places, lived in all different places and overseas, and then I came back to Bedford when my daughter was little because, you know, grandparents are handy. Mm-hmm. And I started working in Luton about 5.5 years ago.
Okay.
And I hadn't had much cause to go to Luton, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
Before that, except to the airport when I was living abroad, and I used to go in and out of Luton Airport. But I think one of the things I've really loved about working in Luton is that, you know, really got a sense of the community and the place and the people that make the place. Yeah. So I really love being able to connect in with that in terms of, like, you know, seeing people out. People support each other in person and on the socials, and generally, I think that spirit is really strong. It's like a really joined community, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. You've got reasons to be very proud of that. And it's nice to feel part of it, you know, and I feel like a part of Luton, even though I'm not from Luton, because, you know, my job is also to support Luton. So, you know, and I've been working in housing for about 25 or so years, more than 25 years. So, yeah, housing strategy is my first love. I'm a bit of a housing geek. I like that is a very weird thing to geek about, but it's very everyone needs a home to live in, right? Yeah, everyone understands that. Yeah, so, right. Yeah, exactly. You know, why not geek about that? Exactly. So, yeah, true. It's very important. No, I definitely agree. It's an odd choice to have as a geek out, but at the same time, like you say, I mean, you know, it's quite an important thing. You need to love where you live, and I think also being that kind of person that cares about housing, it shows that you care about the communities as well, because obviously what you do will ultimately impact communities, right? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, tell me a bit about what you've done so far in your job. Like, what's it like? Okay. Where did your journey start? Where is it now? Do you know what I mean? Give me the whole thing. Well, I started in frontline housing jobs back when, in the 90s. And I've sort of pivoted to housing policy work. I've done all sorts of stuff around empty homes work, energy efficiency, planning, housing delivery. The work that I do now is related to our housing strategic work, and also I'm responsible for energy efficiency and new council house building. So new homes is a really important part of our kind of future as well, and enabling more affordable housing in Luton, which is desperately needed. So, you know, that's hugely challenging because of, you know, the system of planning really is outside of the council's hands, but, you know, we do what we can, and we work really closely with our colleagues across there. So, yeah, I mean, it's placemaking, but it's also about not just the physical infrastructure, but the people and the services. So I have a bit of a catchphrase at work, which is like, if you give me 5 minutes, I'll make it about housing. I like working. I'm doing a lot of really great work at the moment with our social care team, with public health team, in terms of our work on being a marmot town and health equity, and seeing everything through the lens of having people an equal chance of health. Housing is a really important element of that. You can't be healthy in a bad home. Yeah. You know, you can be unhealthy in a good home, but you can't be healthy in a bad home. Yeah. And, you know, so it's really important for the most basic stuff, and also things around sort of economic stability and opportunities in the town, all sorts of things. I'll make it about housing if you give me 5 minutes. So, you know, so what I really love is the work that I do. It gives me the chance to connect into lots of other things that the council is doing, and support that work, because, you know, the ambitions that we have for the town won't be delivered if you don't get a housing offer right.
Yeah.
So I do feel really central to that, and I have great colleagues across the piece who have their own specialties, but we work together.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you say, housing is incredibly important. I mean, I read the other day that if you are sitting in a house that is unheated, for instance, because obviously a lot of people are struggling at the moment to heat their homes. If you're living in a house that's unheated, that roughly sits at about 10 degrees Celsius. And if you are sitting in that space for over, I can't remember how many hours it was, I think it's like three hours, your brain starts to function at 20% less its capacity. And that can just have a whole ton of implications on its own. Not to mention, your extremities lose warmth because you're trying to keep the center sort of warm. That opens you up to so many possibilities of getting unwell, and the knock-on effects from that. And that is just from not being able to necessarily afford to heat your home. Just if you have poor insulation in your home, that can be a humongous problem as well, I'm guessing. I mean, you probably know more about that than myself.
Yeah, and there's some really good clear evidence about the links between cold homes and mental health as well.
Yeah.
So it's not just about physical health, and there's a lot of focus on like respiratory illnesses and things like that, and cardiac illnesses that are impacted by cold homes, but also mental health is very impacted by cold homes. So yeah, absolutely. And there is support out there. So it's really important that people look for that, because the government is just relaunching a whole load of grant and support funding for people to have their homes improved.
Yeah.
Definitely looking to see if you're eligible for that, if you think you might be, because you can usually get that work done for free if you're on a low income. So I urge people to do that.
I mean, like, when it comes to that sort of stuff, isn't that more to do with people who own homes? Is that because I'm not too familiar with it myself?
So it is for people who own their own homes, but there's also funding for private rented properties, and we've already done a huge amount of work on the council stock anyway. In fact, our average EPC rating is way higher than a private property in Luton, but there's still work we're doing, and people would have seen the cladding work on the tower blocks. It's a really obvious sign of that, but it's not the only thing we've been doing. But yeah, absolutely, there's funding coming in from the energy companies, from Ofgem, and from the government as well. So
that's good.
There's a lot of different things out there. The schemes change quite regularly, so staying on top of them is hard work.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? Yeah,
I mean, it's always worth asking, because there is support for that.
Yeah, I get a lot of fans reach out to me who experience financial hardship, and they're not like reaching out for me to do something about it necessarily, but I think they know because I've got connections to certain people that I might know, relevant people to point them in the direction with. And luckily, I've been able to help quite a few people along the way. But, my knowledge stops at a certain point, and I struggle myself financially and, with heating my home, all of that stuff.
Yeah,
I've been lucky because I know about certain schemes and grants and stuff that apply to me, that can help me. And, I'm a student as well, so I get certain help with that as well. But, I'm quite clued up with it. I do my research and I see what I'm entitled to, and I try to use what I can and not use what I don't need. Do you know what I mean? And I think that a lot of people's problem is they just don't know where to go for the help. When I was growing up, before the internet, I knew that if I needed help, I go to the council, and whilst I'm there, that they give me all the information I need. But where things are online now, I think people struggle because, going on any website for somebody who maybe isn't too used to using the internet that much, it can be quite difficult. And because of the way that we live nowadays, people don't really leave the house that much anymore. So to go to the council, it can seem like such a daunting task. What would you recommend for somebody in that situation?
A week or so ago, our energy efficiency officer was out at Lucy Community Centre. There was a sort of coffee morning or something. So we do that sort of thing as well. We're going out into events. Brilliant. To give that advice, to have those face-to-face conversations. But yeah, and I think what I've noticed on this kind of thing as well is that there's a lot of word of mouth as well. So, people find out something and they share it, and, and the word gets out. And I know that because our energy lead, gets all these calls from people. Oh, someone told me to call you.
Yeah.
So I know that word of mouth is working, and it's just a matter of, if you do find out about this stuff, then talk to people about it, because that helps to get the word out for people who might not have seen it on a website or have thought to look. But I mean, it's there on the council website. There's links.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, like I say, I found it fairly fairly easy to navigate. And I've done online inquiry forms, and I've got to admit, like in the past when I used to apply for stuff, it used to take a hell of a long time for people to get back to me. But lately, it's actually been pretty good. I get a response within like at least 3 to 5 days, and the problem's usually sorted fairly quickly. So, I know a lot of people have a lot of bad stuff to say about the council, but at the same time, there is some really good stuff you can say. And that on the people that are there to help, they are really doing their best. And, I can see that from my own personal experience and the experience that other people have had as well. So yeah, I think that's something that you should always highlight. I know that people like to, we like to just kind of look at the bad side of stuff, and we never look at both sides. And I think if you want to improve something, you've got to look at both and be fair, because then the bits that are working, you need to then keep working on, to make them better. And the things that aren't working, you need to disregard and move on. But then if the only criticism you ever get is bad, you kind of just disregard the lot. Do you know what I mean? Because you know that it's unfair criticism, and that people aren't going to be really being appreciative of the actual real hard work that's going on behind the scenes. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, totally. Yeah. There is a lot of hard work goes on behind the scenes. But you don't see it all, of course.
No, of course not. There's a lot of things happening in town at the moment I think are really exciting as well. Like, that not just going to improve people on the side of housing and stuff like that, but also in terms of society as a whole. Like, I wasn't invited to it, but I saw that there was an opening yesterday for the Dart, right? Yeah. And was it for the little River Lee bit as well?
And the Pocket Park, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know much about that?
Well, I mean, I walk past it every time I come into the town, and it's just been really great to see that take shape, because it's so much nicer than just an empty hoarded site from what it was before. And the other thing I really love about it as well, because the Our River mural on the side of the mall, which is our kind of COVID memorial, it never really had any proper prominence before that site was opened up, whereas now it really connects. You're sitting by the river looking at the river mural, and I think that makes it so much more meaneful. You probably are.
I think I am. Someone said to me the other day, they said they was walking past and they saw a picture of me on the mural. But I haven't seen it myself. I've got to get down there.
You've got to go down there and have a look. There's thousands of photos, right? So
I know.
Looking. But also you can see it online. There's an online bit of it where you can hear the story behind every photo.
Oh, really? Oh, that's so cool.
So you can go on. It's an online thing. So there's a plaque on the wall by the mural, and it will tell you how to do that.
Okay.
But yeah, absolutely. And I think those things connect together, and that's part of the kind of cultural heart of the town as well. It's really making a difference in that part of, where there's obviously a lot of work to do around that part of the town, but absolutely. I think, great to see those things
do you know what?
Forward.
That side of the town for me has always been kind of the forgotten part. You've got the hat factory district sort of area, which is beautiful all around there. You've got nice bars and a couple of nice barber shops and some nice places to eat as well in that sort of area. But then when you walk down that little strip to get to Silver Street, there's just nothing there. And then round the back where all the buses come, it looks really bad. Looks quite like if somebody's coming in to the town and they've never been there, and that's where the bus drops them off. Like, that's not a great first impression to have of our town.
I think we're really conscious of that.
Yeah.
There's some of the stuff around the town centre master plan, which I've had some involvement in some of the work around that. And, that's about saying what makes our town centre really compelling for people. We're going to have a lot more people living. Well, we have a lot more people living in the town centre now compared to 10 years ago, partly because of conversions of offices and so on. But how are we going to do that in a meaningful way? Yeah. Make it a nice place to people want to bring their families and raise their children in that part of the town, because that's going to be a different option and a different way of life. And some of that is about making the town centre feel more welcoming. There's bits of that part that I know it feels like the back of places, but not the centre of places. Yeah, exactly. Along that side of the mall, and there's definitely there's so much more that we will be doing to make that feel different. Yeah, and people need to feel like it is welcoming and safe, and it's a great place to be. So that's part of what that's about, isn't it? And that will, there's a sort of tipping point where it feels different and people come, and then that makes it feel different. And then, it sort of reinforces itself, and it's getting that going, which is what we're starting now. Yeah, I mean, like for me, one of the sort of key places where I noticed the change myself is in St. George's Square. Beforehand in that sort of area, it wasn't
you know, it felt kind of a bit dangerous, if I'm going to be honest. But now, since they opened the space out and we've got the big space there where we host all these different events, in that area at the very least, I'd never see any trouble. And I think it's because it looks nice. I know it sounds crazy, but it's like, I think the nicer a place looks, the better people treat it. And, you know, I know that people litter and stuff around town. I don't often see a lot in that massive centre bit. I know that the boys in the council are working hard to clean that area anyway, but, you know, it feels like it's a looked after spot. And I think that needs to be applied to, like, the entire town, obviously, to some degree. It's a lot of work, you know, to be able to do that. But at the same time, I think the work shows itself. That when you do that sort of stuff, it just infects the people around and makes them act a little bit more responsibly, whether it's instead of dropping a can on the floor, they put it in the bin. Because, you know, you look around, I think that whenever somebody litters, they kind of look around. If the place is trampy, they'll throw their stuff on the floor. But if the place is clean, they like, oh, maybe someone's going to see me. Maybe I best not do this. Do you know what I mean? It has a little bit
so it's partly about that, but it's also about that sense of ownership. And I think what you're saying about George Square is really interesting because it's a place where everyone can go. And sort of belongs to everyone.
Exactly.
And it isn't sort of separate or somebody else's space or whatever. I just think it feels like a shared space. So it does make people look after it better. And I think what we need a lot more of, and I see this happening already. I mean, it's amazing people across Luton are doing great work at like making the place look better. You know, you've got, you know, people like Good Jim and whatever, they're going doing litter picks or whatever. Actually, that's also about saying, well, this is our place. This is our town. You know, this is the place we want to be feeling good in. You know, so
and people take that responsibility on themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's really important. If you want to have a good working society, you cannot just expect people to clean up for you. Do you know what I mean? If you know, on my road, I know that if I see litter on the floor, if I don't pick it up, it stays there. Do you know what I mean? Or if my neighbour doesn't pick it up, it stays there. So we take an active approach on our road to make sure that we litter pick. Do you know what I mean? Like to keep the road clean. And do you know what? We don't see trouble on our road anymore. And at the bottom of my road, we have a place where they put it's like social housing. And typically in the past, there was a lot of trouble down there. But recently, you know, it seems like there's less. And there is actual studies that show that when there's less litter in a place, crime goes down, right? Isn't that crazy? And sorry, just give me 1 second. I want to make sure this is filming because I had Bassett Mahmood on recently and it stopped filming at 31 minutes. So let's just have a little check. And yes, we're good. We're good. Let me just do a little, I'm just going to touch the screen as well, just in case. Because I don't know what happened. I'm sorry to interrupt like that, but it's just
that's fine.
So frustrating.
There's nothing worse than like finding that you've missed all the recordings.
Oh, you do podcasts, right? So, you know, you completely understand that there are technical problems that sometimes make no sense. It's like a ghost got into the phone and just starts playing around with it. Do you know what I mean?
No. I do a podcast with my friend Roifield and he is a bit of a global traveller. So last time we recorded, he was in America again, but he's been all over the place. And like sometimes it just didn't work. He was in a hotel somewhere in Czechoslovakia or somewhere. I was like, oh, this is not working. We're going to have to report this because you know, you can't always rely on the tech, or you need a really good, you know, internet thing.
Exactly. But tell me about your podcast. It's what's it called? Map Corner.
Map Corner. So so completely different. But it's about place and it's about information. So it's a bit geeky. Map Corner. We celebrate maps, cartography, travel. We are not specialists or experts in any way. If you want a specialist professional map podcast, there are GIS podcasts and all sorts of things that you can go to. That's not what we do. So we have a real eclectic bunch of people who come and talk to us about anything that might be vaguely map related.
Oh, that's so cool.
You know, people who've been on amazing adventures and travel like around the world on a boat. We had a really interesting chat recently with a guy who's written a history about like architectural models. Okay. Like who hasn't walked around a model village or seen a model and feel like some sort of amazing God looking down on the world? Understanding place. So that's sort of map related.
No, that is so cool. I love little models. I love going to places like that. It's such a favourite thing of mine. I love it.
And so there are some really great kind of people who share maps online. Like Simon Map is like an internationally known person who shares loads of maps online, and He's been on our podcast a couple of
Oh,
times.
that's very cool. Very
yeah,
cool.
so we just like anything kind of map related, which is quite fun.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
That's another odd interest, but I love it. I absolutely love it because that's what makes people special and unique is their interests, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I've got a little bit of a weird thing about maps as well. Not like tremendously massive, but I do find maps really interesting, especially maps that were drawn pre-flight. I find them truly fascinating. Like how people were able to figure out over great vast spaces what the place looked like from a bird's eye view, because that's what a map is drawn as, essentially, is a bird's eye view.
Yeah.
Essentially. So to be able to have that, it just fascinates me where the idea of making the map to look like, how do you know by being out at sea that's the shape exactly? And it's so close. When you look at really old maps to now, it's so close to what they would have actually perceived the world to be like.
Yeah, it's such a specialist art, really.
It is, yeah. It really is. I saw a map actually recently that was really, really interesting. So I can't remember when it was, but Antarctica was discovered in like the 1900s, right? Or late 1800s. I'm not sure. It's like,
I'll believe you.
It's not that long ago anyway.
Yeah.
And before that time, so there was a map drawn in like the 1800s of the world, and it was missing Antarctica. It was just a giant water space. Yeah, exactly. And then they found maps drawn in the 15th century by this Turkish guy, and he based the maps on ancient maps. He doesn't list his sources, but that's what he says he bases his maps on. And he's got Antarctica in it, that fascinates me because where did he figure out the idea of Antarctica if it hadn't been discovered up until that point? That really, really fascinates me.
Yeah. I know. And some of those really old maps where, you know, they haven't got north at the top like we would do now, or they're just the whole thing's completely different. Or you have Jerusalem in the centre, and on the edges it's all magical creatures. It's a really interesting way to come at it. Yeah. The other thing that I really love is like data visualization. So that's the kind of thing that I really go for.
Well, please explain.
So like maps that are showing information.
Okay.
So either in a map form or sort of data viz form. And again, that's my geek coming out, but that's what I really like. I find those really interesting because I think maps are a way of conveying information, and it doesn't have to just be geographical information. Like there's a river here and a church there. It can be this place has got more people of this kind of person, this kind of people or that kind of people, or it's got a greater income, or it's got more Gregs. I mean, there was one we shared recently about which parliamentary constituencies have the most branches of Gregs.
Oh wow!
Manchester Central.
Really?
Yeah.
Really? How many? How many is it?
Something ridiculous, like 17 or something like that.
Seriously?
Yeah.
How do you need that many Gregs?
Well, I think there's probably about 8 in just one in the station. Like there are some where
that's still too many.
There's a lot of Gregs.
They do love their pasties up north, though, don't they?
But there was a map that started off by saying, like, here's a map of parliamentary constituencies. What's the connection between all these different ones? And it was ones there were no Gregs in these specific constituencies.
Oh.
There are only a handful that have no Gregs.
Oh wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah. So it's just, those are the ones that I really love. It's just like random things, like what's the most searched for thing on Google in different American states, or all that kind of thing. Those kind of data viz maps.
You like rabbit holes? Oh,
absolutely, endlessly. And you also go to ask yourself, where's the data come from for this? Can I trust a data source? Have they just made this up? Sometimes the background data source can be a bit dubious, but it's always entertaining. They're not there for kind of serious discussion. Some of these are just a bit of fun.
Yeah, a little bit of fun. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I totally relate. Like I like to spend a lot of my time doing deep internet dives on random subjects that have no relevance to my life whatsoever, and never will do as well. They will only benefit me in a conversation like this. Do you know what I mean? Like, for instance, let me think of one. Oh, like platypuses. I went on a massive platypus thing for about a year where I was obsessed with platypuses.
Right.
And because they have venom in them. They are mammals because they produce milk. Yeah. They have a bill of a duck and they lay eggs.
I know, like Australian animals are
That is
way out there, aren't
the
they?
weirdest thing that I've ever and they're so cute. They make really cute noises as well. They're just such a lovely little animal. But then at the same time, if they hit you with their spur, then that can really take you out. It's really poisonous venom in there.
They've got it all going on, haven't they?
They really have. They're fascinating. It's like I was talking to Zoe McGonnell recently, right? She's doing a trek to Noah to Madagascar. And we was talking, and on Madagascar, they have 70 different types of lemur. 70. Wow. And that is just mind-blowing that, it's only a small island, but yet there's so many animals. That's one of my fascinations. I love animals. Ever since I was a little kid, I used to watch David Attenborough documentaries. I would watch, I think it went David Attenborough and then Top Gear on BBC Two on a Sunday. I can't remember, but
interesting juxtaposition.
I think that's what it was. But yeah, that was my thing. That's what my nerdy sort of thing was.
One of my favourite kind of wildlife maps you look out for these is where you've got ones where they put trackers on animals.
Yeah.
And they can show you, for example, migration routes of birds and stuff like that.
So
but there's also a really interesting one showing the territory areas of wolves in the big national park in America, and it just shows you how there are different packs and they all pretty much keep exactly to their own territory. There's almost no overlap whatsoever.
Wow.
They know which is their area and which isn't.
Yeah.
And you've got all these track paths of the different wolf packs.
Yeah.
Based on the trackers on the animals, and it just demonstrates the territorial kind of control that they have over a particular part of the park.
Yeah, wolves are very interesting, actually. Very interesting animals, the way that they behave, and when you see them together, they socialise together, and to be able to keep a border like that, that's mental. I mean, when I go out with my dog, I'm pretty sure he thinks that he owns the entire world. So he's not as good as a wolf, but obviously evolution has dumbed dogs down. I think I don't know.
My cat's had a bit of a running battle with a newish cat in the neighbourhood, they've definitely got some territorial things.
Do you not love the relationships between local cats and how they genuinely, there's an alpha cat that owns the area, and all the other cats are kind of beta cats that just mill around, and some of them are friends and some of them absolutely hate each other.
Oh, I have to go out and break up the screaming matches.
So how many cats do you have?
I've just the one.
Just the one. Okay, cool.
But,
what's your cat's name?
Abby.
Abby. Oh, that's a nice
So what happened
name.
is the cat next door to us died, and then after that, the cat from behind their house has started coming across into the territory that used to belong to that, and then now it's coming sort of across into what she feels is her territory.
Yeah.
Not happy.
Oh dear. Oh dear. No, I absolutely love animals. I love cats as well. I'm a big cat and dog person.
Well, that's unusual. People usually pick one or the other.
No, I love them both. My dog. So I've got an American bulldog, right? He's absolutely massive. If he stands on his back legs, he's taller than me.
Wow.
Yeah, he's huge, and but he's so lovely. He's soppy boy, and. Yeah, so I had this cat. The cat's since run away, and I've searched and searched and searched. Leave food out, it disappears. I'm not sure if it's the cat eating it, but I'm truly gutted. I love this cat. His name was Crowley, right? Yeah, he was a lovely little guy. I actually thought he was a girl at first. Me and my partner called him Ruby, right? And then one day my partner said, "Yeah, this is definitely not a girl." And I was like, "What do you mean?" She was like, "Well, look at him, look at him, look at him." She pulled his legs apart. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's definitely a boy. He's such an idiot. I thought I got a girl cat. But anyway, so Crowley and Cass, they had this kind of funny relationship where Crowley didn't really like to be in the same room as Cass, but he liked to come in and wind him up and sort of back him into a corner, because Cass is massive. He's an absolutely massive dog. He's terrified because he's got a scratch before. Yeah. So he's since learned. So when the cat comes in, he's like this, and he backs up into the corner, and the cat can do whatever it wants. It's so funny watching this little tiny thing abuse this giant dog. but yeah, no, since the cat's been gone, Cass feels a little bit braver now. But then when he sees a cat outside, he whimpers a little bit, like a previous memory of being abused by that little tiny black cat. Animals are great. Animals are great. You don't have any dogs or anything like that, do you?
No, just a cat.
No, just the cat.
Dogs are a lot of work as well, aren't they? And I don't think they
can be.
have the capacity.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of they're a benefiting thing as well. Dogs are great for your mental health, is what I will definitely say. When you're having a down day, your dog will pick you up without a doubt, because in their mind, everything is joy. They're like, oh, dogs are just like bundles of joy all the time. They're never upset. They just always want to play. They always want to cuddle. They're never in a bad mood, you know, and they can really pick up on when you're in a bad mood. And when I'm feeling down, my dog comes and he hugs me. Do you know what I mean? It's so lovely, like, to have that sort of affection from the animal. But yeah, they can be a bit hard work. But then at the same time, you know, he gets me out for a walk all the time.
No, that is a really good thing. Like,
I would never walk. I hate exercising, man. Like, that is the worst thing in my life. But, you know, my dog, every morning, he comes up to my face, he licks me, and then he gets really, like, antsy, like, if I don't take him out, you know. And, yeah, because of that, it's a good start to my day. I end up having some fresh air, and I get to see some beautiful sights. Like, I like to go for walks, like, where I get to take in really beautiful views, like, and Luton has so many. Oh,
absolutely. It's the topography, right? Because of the hills.
Yeah.
You get these amazing views.
I know. It's such an unusual, like, place where you can be on, like, you always feel like you're on the highest spot, and then you look over there and you're like, oh my God, that's even higher. You can't believe it. I love Dunstable Downs. You've been Dunstable Downs, I'm guessing. Yeah, Dunstable Downs is a beautiful place. But yeah, there's just so many. There's so many. Like, I like to go for walks up Warden Hill as well, stand up the top there. I heard that used to be a place where they hanged people a long time ago. Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. I have to. Do you know what? I never do any research other than into the person that I'm
I wasn't expecting a pop quiz on places they used to hang people. I did not prep for that.
All right, the next one, we're going to have a list of places they used to hang people.
That's a weird bit of research.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I don't know what my missus is going to think of me when I'm writing down these names, and she's going, what's that for? And it just sees at the top, hang places. No, that's a terrible idea. Let's not do that. What we should do is we should come back and I should have a load of map talk.
Okay, fair enough.
That's what I should bring, like, maps, and then we can talk about maps, because I genuinely do love them. Like, they're very cool. But yeah, I mean, so let's go back to you in, like, council world and all of that stuff. So what is coming up for you in terms of what you're doing? Is there stuff you can talk about that because, you know, people genuinely, like, say to me, I want to know what they're actually doing, you know, because, like, not as in, are you doing anything? Like, but as in, like, tell me, please.
What's going on?
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, so we're just going to committee next week, as we call this, with our new housing strategy. That's been sort of really in the works all year, with a lot of consultation work going on with it, and hearing what people want and what people think about the things that we're prioritising. So that will be kind of official. But obviously we're already working towards a lot of this stuff anyway. It's about, you know, more housing of the right kind, making sure that we're trying to do our best to keep homelessness down and respond to homelessness, which is really increasing right now.
Yeah.
Doing really good quality housing services for our own tenants, because that's absolutely a priority for us, and making sure that the right specialist accommodation can come forward. I think that's the thing that I'm really interested in at the moment, is that we're kind of getting a lot better at that coordination, really thinking about how we have the right kind of specialist homes that we might need, and can start planning for that, because that doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes you need 4 or 5 years lead in for that kind of stuff, and we're really getting that lined up now. So that for me, that's a really interesting area of work.
I mean, with specialist housing, what's specialist housing?
So
exactly?
So a whole range of different things. So been looking at stuff around, where's a good place to age well at home. That's obviously an ongoing thing. We have more people getting older. Yeah. Even though Luton's a very young town in general, we still have people who will be aging. And I think the conversation about looking around where you are and saying, do I want to be old here?
Yeah,
it's really important, and people don't tend to have it because they don't like to think about being old or frail or having any issues. So actually, the earlier you can have that thought process and that conversation, the better.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I think, like, I look around where I live and I go, this is going to be completely unsuitable for me if I ever need anything different. So I want to be here in 10 or 15 years time. I want to have made some sort of move then for something better that will be adaptable or I can age in place well.
Yeah.
So, you know, that kind of thing is like what's really going to be a thing that people want to move to as well. I think the other thing to be aware of with Luton is, you know, that the kind of homes that are coming through are changing. We're seeing more apartments. The way that we use land is different.
Yeah.
So actually, you know, we're not going to see a lot of kind of suburban kind of house type development as much as we used to. If people want those homes, we need to entice people out of them, if you like, by giving them a really good offer about, you know, what's a really great place to live as you get older, where you feel safe, you know, in your home, that the home meets your needs, you know, it's not causing you trouble. And people get disabled by their living environments.
Yeah, that's
if they get failed.
point.
So that's, you know, so it's sort of an older people thing. But then there's, you know, a huge amount of work around very specialist accommodation, say for people with complex needs and autism or learning disabilities or physical disabilities or sensory disabilities. You know, some of that is about just adapting homes that are there already, but some of it needs to be really quite bespoke. And sometimes that's about, you know, going out and finding something on the market, buying it and doing it, making it right. Sometimes it might be designing something from scratch. We haven't done a lot of designing from scratch, but I think that's a place that we'll be going to. Yeah. And that's quite exciting. So we can
that
really
must be, like designing homes of the future in a way as well, because obviously where you build a brand new home nowadays, it's the technology that's going to be going into the home from the outset, the offset, sorry, is just going to be, it's going to be something that's going to set that apart from what we already have in this town, because, you know, there is quite old housing in Luton, which must make it quite difficult to update as well, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
you know,
I mean, that's
use a lot of asbestos.
Challenge.
Like, I've got a problem with my property things. Don't worry, this isn't me coming to you for some help. I've been told that this is very, very hard, this job. So I have a pipe that runs up the entirety of my house, and it's made out of cast iron, and it's Victorian, and it's filled with asbestos. I think it's Victorian. No, it's not Victorian. I can't remember what it is, but it's filled with asbestos. This is my point. And we was having a problem with it, and they had to patch the leak that was coming out of it, and they couldn't replace the pipe because there's so much asbestos in it that it's dangerous to remove. So they have to leave it there, which is, you know, it's a shame that that's sort of the case, but that's one of the challenges I'm guessing that you come up with.
And one of the big challenges around future proof in our homes is around the kind of net zero agenda, and you know, our new council housing that we're designing now is going to go to net zero. So we're going to be building stuff out now, ideally at net zero where we can. But there's a lot of homes in Luton that need, like we said, you know, they can be whole cold and poorly insulated, and they're older homes. You know, getting all of those homes to net zero is a huge challenge.
Yeah, I bet.
And that's a really important part of how we're making a contribution through what we do in housing, really. It's a part of the town's commitment to you know, reducing our carbon. You know, about over a third of all the carbon emissions in Luton come from homes.
Really?
So
I didn't know that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, absolutely. So everyone doing what they can around that is so important, and making sure that new homes are really future proofed around that. Yeah. And the government is slowly changing the rules. You know, like if we'd kept the original plan, we would have all been zero carbon new homes by 2016, and just think where we'd be now if that was
I know, right?
That was all got rid of. So you know, we're sort of playing catch up with that, really, not just in terms of existing homes and insulation, but in terms of new home design as well. But I see a huge amount of enthusiasm and of course a lot of inventiveness, and, you know, across the whole sector around doing that well. And a lot of those technologies have been really well tried out now and are ready for rollout. And that's the other exciting thing, I think.
Yeah, that is exciting, because once you say this is ready to go, I mean, like in the build up of something being ready, it must be really frustrating. You just want to get it done, but now you've got the technologies there available, must make the planning stage now for the house a lot easier. Yeah,
I think one of the challenges, I mean, I've been low carbon housing has been something I've been interested in for, I don't know, 20 years, but 15 years. I think there's been this issue about no one quite wanted to make the decision to be an early adopter, because they know that something better and cheaper will come along soon after, and that's the nature of any emerging technology. You need early adopters because you need people to sort of keep that business going. But at the same time, you know, kind of a large level, like, you know, we did a lot of work with housing associations for a long time, and they were all really keen to do what they could, but they were all a bit nervous about being the first to adopt.
Yeah.
And actually, I think we're starting to work through that now. So, obviously, I think we have to take the point that you can do something now, and actually, it might still be better and cheaper in 5 years' time. But you've got those 5 years where you've done something in, and you know, we're running out of time for this. You know, like, we want to be net zero by 2040 in Luton. Stuff that's being designed now and will be built out in a few years' time, you have to go and retrofit that within the first 5 or 10 years of its life. What's the point? Why not just build it right? You know,
exactly.
So, you know, but that's a huge challenge. It's a change of mindset. And
are you hopeful?
I am hopeful on that, actually.
Good.
I think that we are hitting a tipping point, and obviously, the current fuel crisis and the ridiculous price of heating your home is not a good thing. I'm not in favour of that as a thing, but I think it's really forced to the agenda because people are noticing differently, and they are going to value that differently. So I think there's been an argument that, well, if you build a house and it costs a little bit extra, people won't pay a bit extra for that. But I think that actually, first of all, it's not costing that much extra anymore than it used to 10 years ago. And actually, I think there will be a market for it. I think people will look at that and value. If you say to someone, oh, well, here's a new house you can buy, and it has a running cost of £200 a year because it's passive housing, it doesn't need any heating, and here's a house that's just built to like regular standards and it's costing £1,000 a year, people are going to look at it and go, well, actually, give me the low run costs. You know, and I think we are starting to see that change.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful about that.
Well, because ultimately, if it's saving people money, then that's something that people are going to be interested in, especially right now. I mean, is a part of that, is it to do with things like insulation and stuff like, or solar panels?
It's always going to be a mixture. If you're going to go to complete like zero carbon, we always say fabric first. So that's about like a really well insulated and well ventilated building.
Yeah.
You know, because in something like a passive house design, it's incredibly well insulated. You don't actually need any heating, really.
Yeah, exactly.
So it just stays
warm
ambient all the time.
Yeah.
And just the people being in it and like turning the telly on and having the kettle running now and again, it's enough just to keep it warm. And so that is a great place to start. But then obviously, if you're looking to be decarbonised, you've got to think about where the electric's coming from. And that's the point when you start thinking about, you know, have you got solar? And, you know, how are you making the best use of that? I mean, solar and batteries is a really good way of, you know, making the best of what's available and using it when you need it. Because a straight solar panel, it's okay while you're generating.
But then during like these months, it's not going to be great. Yeah, exactly.
So I just had some solar panels and a battery fitted about a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
Through the Solar Together scheme. And I'm getting a bit. I was boring people in the first few weeks. Look at my app. Look how much I'm generating. Look at what battery looks like. Every now and then, even today, I've looked in this morning. Like, oh, how's my battery doing? And it's obviously now the days are very short and the nights are long and dark, and it's not that light even when it's light. If you know what I mean, we're in that part of the year. But even so, I sometimes look at it and like we're not really using any grid electricity at all.
Oh, that's good.
So it's either coming off the panels or either the sun's gone down and it's just coming off the battery, and we're still not using any grid electric.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Even going back into October, where you know the days were a bit longer, there were times when we barely used any grid electricity in a whole day.
Yeah.
And that's just phenomenal.
I mean, like,
I had no idea what it would be like when I had it done. I was like, oh,
I bet you kind of. I would assume that it's going to be like half of one, half of the other, almost.
I mean, this time of year, definitely we are using more grid electric. But when we get into the summer, we'll be exporting it back in, I think.
Really? Wow, that's impressive. So realistically, that's a big advice tip coming from you then. Get some solar panels because it's going to save you some money.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, it costs a lot of money to install.
It
so,
does,
like, you know,
yeah.
it's a
long-term project.
It sounds like a 20-year payback life, but it kind of depends on the price of electricity during 20 years.
Do you know what? That would be good to see landlords maybe investing in for people in privately rented accommodations and maybe in housing associations, because obviously for a vast population in Luton, there's a lot of people that are renting, obviously, and for you to want to get solar panels whilst you're renting is not going to be very likely. Most people don't stay in a house that they're renting for a terribly long time. So, there does need to, because I believe that we should be moving to something. You know, I don't think that we can move overnight to being completely net zero, but it needs to start happening as soon as possible, because, you know, from the signs of science, it doesn't look particularly great. I mean, you know, there's a lot of fear mongering as well that goes in with that, and it's hard to pass out what's true and what's not. But overall, you know, there is like species are becoming more. There's more extinct species every year. The temperature of the Earth is rising. You know, the water temperature is rising. There's more carbon in the atmosphere. Like, there are physical things you can see, and the effect on that. You know, we can't really be too sure of it. We can trust scientific models, and hopefully they guide us in a correct way. But then they might even be wrong. So the best thing that we can do is try to use only the energy that we need and be more efficient in what we're using.
And we are we're seeing it now, aren't we? I mean, you look at the extreme weather events and, you know, the floods in Pakistan.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, fires and floods, and even in the UK, which doesn't have particularly extreme weather as a rule, is still really vulnerable to flooding, for example.
I mean, like for Luton, we don't flood ever, but we've been flooding a lot lately. We've been flooding a hell of a lot lately, and that's really weird for me because, you know, growing up in this town, there was one time. So I grew up in this area, right? And at the bottom of this road, we won't say exactly where I'm pointing to in that, but at the bottom of this road, there's a bit of a dip, and the Luton flooded that day. And I remember going outside, and it was so deep, I literally jumped into it, and I swam around in this giant puddle that was in the middle of the road. I do not recommend doing that to anybody. Don't go swimming in roads, okay? That's a bad idea. But yeah, like, that's kind of my only memory of a flood occurring in Luton, like, because, like we say, it's quite hilly, so, you know, we don't tend to see that kind of extreme weather. But now that that's starting to happen, that does show. I mean, you know, what more of a warning do you want? That something's slightly different. It's already kind of evident that we're getting longer summers and it's staying hotter for longer, and it's like, it almost feels like winter has sort of shifted slightly as well. Like, it's become a lot later, and, you know, we're getting snow in April now, which never used to happen. That bit of coldness in April and March is just kind of unheard of. That's like the start of spring for me, and but like lately it's not been the case. But yeah, I'm not an expert on climate change and all of that stuff, by the way. I just want to let people out there know that. Don't take my advice on any of this stuff. I'm just commenting as an idiot in a mask. But yeah, no, it is something important we should all be thinking about. I'm glad that we've got people like you doing the jobs that you're doing and thinking about stuff like that.
Yeah, and I've got great colleagues at the council in our climate change team, really trying to help, you know, what that means locally, what that looks like, you know, what's our route to getting to net zero, because, you know, it's a long journey to go from where we are now to there. There's a lot of things that need to change in terms of buildings and homes and transport and, you know, all sorts of stuff, and they are on that.
That's good. So, Claire, is there anything else you'd like to talk about today in particular? Is there anything that's on your mind?
Well, it's nice to be asked. I just like to say it's nice to be part of, you know, a great town, really. And, you know, I'm a big advocate for Luton. I was at an event at the university at the weekend, and I was with some colleagues or friends who came up, and I was like, just on the tour from their hotel to the university, I was like, oh, look, there's this place here, and we're going to do this, and there's this and this and this. So I'm selling Luton in to everyone who I speak to, because you're absolutely right. It has you know, a reputation which is ill deserved, in my view. You know, and every town's got great places and less great places, and, you know, like, no one's you know, the absolute best. And I think Luton's got so much going for it. You know, I'll always be a little bit Luton, and I'm really proud of the place.
That's good. That's so nice to hear. Thank you so much for coming on.
You're welcome.
Thank you for talking to me. And hopefully, you know, we can do some stuff in the future as
Sure.
well. And we're going to have like a map podcast.
Okay, fair enough.
Why not? You know what I mean? Oh, maybe I could come on your podcast.
Yeah, well,
I don't know how it would work.
Think of something map related. I'll book you in.
I could think of anything related. I'm so easy to come up with mad ideas, trust me. But yeah, no, thank you so much, Claire.
You're welcome.
Really appreciate it. Thanks for coming on. Thank you, Luton. Love you, Luton. There we go. Thank you so much. That was awesome. And we